Hi, this is Sue for Parkies and Me, my journey with Parkinson's. So today I thought I'd talk about the evolution of Christmas, or oh God, are we talking about that already? Which is what my husband and my daughter often say when I broach the subject. So I'm just thinking about where I've come from as a mum, as a nana, compared to when I first started out with children, thinking about Christmas when my kids were little. So I often look back nostalgically at when my kids were little, and Christmas, although it was a little bit manic, I was able to have a semblance of control over the process, might I say. The kids were so small, so I would tell them what we were going to do that day. I would buy them a Christmas outfit that they may or may not have had input into, and I would sort the decorations, the presents, the food, everything, and everything was under my control. I knew what was being done when, I knew who was doing what, and the who and the what was usually me, doing everything to do with cooking. So there was no question that my kids wouldn't do what was required of them at Christmas, and that sounds really controlling. But when you've got small children, you do have to be organised, even for something like Christmas. And so, one thing that we would do for the kids is we would always let them open their presents first, because it's not really very fair to expect them to sit down for, even if it's a really nice breakfast, with all those packages under the tree and they haven't got their little hands on them yet. So yeah, we'd open the presents and then we'd have a nice dinner and we would all have our Christmas outfits on. Being in New Zealand, it's warm, it's summer, so we don't have Christmas jumpers, and it would be far too hot even if we did. But we sometimes have roast meals, sometimes there's barbecues at Christmas, sometimes people go to the beach. New Zealand is quite different in that respect from many that are English and other UK residents when they come here. It can seem quite strange that they're having a sunny Christmas, not a wintry Christmas. So yeah, we always had some Christmas outfits and some nice food, and we might play a game or something. We'd have party hats, paper hats, we'd pull crackers, and we would read those very lame jokes from the crackers. So, for me it was sort of predictable. I had organised everything. I am a bit of a planner. In fact, I'm very much a planner. I like to plan ahead, much more than my husband does. In fact, I think it drives him a bit batty because here it is September and I'm talking about Christmas. And so the, oh God, are we talking about that already, is in deference to my husband, because that is exactly what he would say to me. So when the children got a bit older and they started going out and then they got serious boyfriends or girlfriends, and they wanted those people to be part of their lives at Christmas. And they also had a partner who wanted to be with their parents at Christmas. So it was always a bit of a juggling act, and it was always bound to be. My son lives up in Wellington. My daughter-in-law obviously lives there too. She comes from Wellington, so her parents and all her siblings, or most of her siblings, are in Wellington. So we take turnabout with them coming here one year and being with her parents on another. My daughter's here in Christchurch, but she has in-laws here and a sister-in-law here. So there's always been the conversation about Christmas. And I've always tried, and not always been successful, to negotiate a mutually agreed Christmas option every year. And I understand from my daughter's point of view, there's her mother, her mother-in-law, her sister-in-law, and as she said often to me, she said everybody has a really good reason why they want to have Christmas at their place. And I get that. But every year we have a conversation about who's going to have what at whose house for Christmas. And I think my daughter and I both get equally as stressed as each other. And I do try not to be too demanding or too prescriptive on what's going to happen. But, it can be quite a stressful situation, because the poor girl is stuck in the middle of everybody trying to keep the peace and trying to make sure that everybody has a good Christmas. And I know it's not been easy. I know it's not been easy at all. And so, there's always been a bit of negotiation, a lot of conversation about who's doing what when. And somehow we come out the other side of Christmas relatively sane human beings, but it can be a bit of a challenge. And so, you start off with your children as they get older. They have partners, and then they have children of their own. And of course, when somebody has small children, especially my daughter when she had twins, carting small people around the place on Christmas Day can be a nightmare. So basically, if they're the smallest people in the family, that it would muck up their sleep routines and everything else would be too much for them to cope with, then we try to have the Christmas at the house at which they are residing at the time. So if they're visiting from Wellington and they're staying with us, then the kids obviously are staying with us, and my daughter and her family will spend some time with us at Christmas. So it just adds a layer of complexity when the partners come on the scene, and then another layer comes along when they have children, and that has to be a consideration. When my kids were little, and we used to have discussions with the mother-in-law and father-in-law about Christmas, we had quite a good thing going where we would all have our own Christmas at our individual houses, because he had a brother and a sister that also had children, and we were all in Wellington. And so we had this agreement that we would all do our own thing Christmas Day, and Boxing Day we would all get together. And that worked quite well. Except I remember my mother-in-law used to insist that the kids sit and eat their Christmas dinner before they got their presents. And oh my goodness, you should see the sad look on those children's faces as they tried to get some enthusiasm together to eat whatever is put in front of them, even if it was really yummy. It didn't compare to the tantalising sight of those parcels, all wrapped in gift wrap with bows on, with their names on, that they couldn't wait to get their little fingers into. So that was really hard, because they just struggled. I could see them struggling, and I'd say, can they just open one present? And she'd say, no, they can have their presents after they've had their lunch. So that was a bit challenging. And then, so one of my children has separated between last Christmas, or just before last Christmas, and so they have children that have had to cope with all the stresses and strains of that change in their family structure. That they no longer live with both their parents, they live with their parents' turnabout, and trying to work out how that works for them. And so Christmas will be different for that family. So that adds another complexity as to how that is negotiated between the kids' parents, their mum and dad, how that is negotiated. So that's quite a stressful situation for a parent to be in, and I remember it well myself. So out of the blue, something popped into my head, and it's really unusual for me to be thinking like this, but I thought to myself, why do we need to have Christmas together necessarily? We see a lot of each other and spend some time with them, but a lot of the time they're wanting to spend time with their friends. Now, one of the girls has got a boyfriend, so he's in the mix as well, so she will want to see him at Christmas. So I rang my daughter the other day, because she's the one that lives here in Christchurch, and I said, I've been thinking about Christmas. And the voice on the other end of the phone goes, oh God, Mum, I hate having this conversation every year. It drives me nuts. Everybody's got a reason that they want to have Christmas at their house. And I said, yeah, I know. I know you don't like having this conversation. She says, no, I dread it every year. And I said, well, hang on a minute, because you're going to like this conversation. And she goes, okay. I said, how would it be if Aid and I had Christmas, just the two of us? Because we thought we might just go out for dinner. And she was delighted. She goes, oh, that's such a good idea. I love that idea. I said, you're quite happy? You don't mind us not seeing you on Christmas Day? She goes, hell no. She said, it'll be great. The kids and I can sit around in our pajamas. We can eat rubbish. We can watch Christmas movies. We won't have to go anywhere. I love that idea. So I was very popular with that suggestion. And it was quite funny because my husband walked in and I said to him, "Oh, Aid, I'm just talking to Lauren about Christmas." And he goes, "Oh, God." And I said, No, she's very happy. I'm very happy. It's the best Christmas conversation we have ever had. So he laughed, and Lauren was laughing as well. And yeah, it occurred to me that this is a huge change for me. It's a quantum leap from the days when the kids were small and I had all that control and I wanted that control. And the children sort of had to do basically what they were told. They were told what was happening, what we were eating and all that sort of thing. And it was always important that we were all together. But now I know that I'm at the stage where I don't need it so much. I mean, because my grandchildren, 3 of them are here, we see them a lot. And I said to my daughter, we will see you and the girls at some point over Christmas. It might be 2 days before, might be 2 days after. It might be for an hour on Christmas Day if we pop round with their presents. Let's just play it by ear and see what suits. And that feels really good. It feels low pressure. We're not overcommitting anybody. We're not overcommitting ourselves. And we'll all have a much nicer Christmas because we can do what we all feel like doing. So my husband and I will have a nice Christmas dinner out, and my daughter and her kids and my son and his kids can do what works for them. And I think that's going to be the best thing ever, and it could turn out to be the best Christmas any of us have had because we don't have to do anything for anybody but ourselves. We don't have to do anything we don't want. We can just do what fits for us. And it sounds like for my daughter, it's having a jammy day, and there might be new Christmas jammies, who knows. Having a jammy day and eating rubbish and watching Christmas movies and just chilling, maybe with a few bubbles, and that sounds just fine to me. So yeah, I've come a long way. I've come a heck of a long way from the mum that I was, needing to spend that time with my children, to one where, as long as I get to see the kids at some time near Christmas, I'll be a happy camper. Oh, and by the way, I haven't forgotten, my son is going to get a visit from us the end of October, and that will be our pre-Christmas, and we'll probably give the kids something then. So hopefully everybody will be happy, nobody's going to feel put out, and we will all have a very merry, very happy, very chilled Christmas, because Mr. Parkinson's does not like it when I'm stressed, and neither do I. So this has been Sue for Parkies and Me, my journey with Parkinson's. Kia kaha, be brave, be strong, be you.